The intelligence report arrived at Oberkommando der Wehrmacht headquarters in late December 1943, carrying information that would fundamentally reshape German assessments of the coming Allied invasion of Western Europe. General Dwight D. Eisenhower had been appointed Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, the position that would direct the long-anticipated invasion of France. The name meant little to most German generals when they first encountered it in the intelligence summary. Eisenhower was not unknown to German military intelligence, but he was hardly the prominent figure that someone like George Patton or Bernard Montgomery represented in the German understanding of Allied military leadership. The initial reaction among the senior German commanders was a mixture of surprise and satisfaction. Surprise because Eisenhower had not been the expected choice for such a crucial command, and satisfaction because the German General Staff believed they understood what his appointment signified about Allied command dynamics and strategic priorities. The analysis that emerged from this initial assessment would prove catastrophically wrong, demonstrating once again how preconceptions and cultural biases could blind even sophisticated military professionals to the actual capabilities of their adversaries. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, commander of German forces in the West, received the intelligence about Eisenhower's appointment with the measured response characteristic of his aristocratic reserve. Rundstedt was a product of the old Prussian military tradition, a professional soldier who valued operational competence and traditional military virtues. His initial assessment of Eisenhower was shaped by what German intelligence could tell him about the American general's career and by what Rundstedt assumed about the political dynamics of Allied command relationships. The intelligence file on Eisenhower was reasonably comprehensive, but fundamentally misleading in its implications. Eisenhower had graduated from West Point in 1915, served in various staff positions during the First World War without seeing combat, and spent the interwar years in routine peacetime assignments. He had never commanded troops in battle before 1942. His rise to prominence had come through staff work and political assignments rather than through battlefield command. He had served as an aide to Douglas MacArthur in the Philippines, worked in the War Plans Division, and demonstrated organizational ability rather than tactical brilliance. To German generals steeped in a military culture that valued combat leadership and operational command, this profile suggested a staff officer promoted beyond his level of competence for political reasons. The German military tradition emphasized leading from the front, personal courage under fire, and proven tactical ability. Generals earned their rank through command of progressively larger formations in combat. Staff work was necessary, but subordinate to operational command. An officer who had never led troops in battle, commanding the greatest invasion in history, seemed to confirm Allied military amateurism. The German interpretation of Eisenhower's appointment was filtered through their understanding of coalition warfare and their assumptions about American military culture. They recognized that commanding Allied forces required political skill to manage relationships between American, British, and other Allied commanders. They assumed that Eisenhower had been chosen precisely because he was politically adept rather than militarily formidable, selected to smooth over national rivalries rather than to provide strategic direction. This assessment seemed to be confirmed by Eisenhower's track record in the Mediterranean. He had commanded the invasions of North Africa, Sicily, and Italy, operations that German analysts viewed as cautious and unimaginative. The North African campaign had taken longer than necessary to defeat Axis forces that were already weakened and poorly supplied. The Sicily invasion, while successful, had allowed German forces to evacuate to the Italian mainland, where they would fight for another year and a half.
German commanders who participated in the Sicily evacuation took professional satisfaction from having outmaneuvered Eisenhower. They had executed a complex withdrawal operation under difficult circumstances, saving forces and equipment that Allied operational superiority should have destroyed. The fact that Eisenhower had allowed this escape suggested to them that he either did not understand how to exploit success or lacked the aggressiveness to attempt it. Either way, it marked him as a cautious commander who would not take risks even when circumstances favored boldness. The Italian campaign seemed to confirm this pattern at every stage. The initial landings at Salerno in September 1943 had nearly been defeated by determined German counterattacks, suggesting that Allied planning had underestimated German defensive capabilities. The subsequent advance up the Italian peninsula had bogged down into exactly the kind of attritional warfare that favored German defensive tactics. By December 1943, when Eisenhower's appointment to command the invasion of France was announced, Allied forces in Italy had been stopped at the Gustav Line, with the battle at Monte Cassino becoming a symbol of the campaign's frustration. From the German perspective, these Mediterranean campaigns demonstrated competent execution but lacked the operational brilliance that characterized German commanders at their best. Eisenhower had not attempted bold operational maneuvers or sought decisive battles. Instead, he had applied overwhelming material superiority methodically and cautiously. The campaigns had been grinding affairs of attrition rather than elegant operational art. This suggested to German analysts that Eisenhower was a manager of resources rather than a battlefield commander, an administrator rather than a warrior. What the German analysis missed was the strategic context in which these campaigns were conducted. The North African campaign had political objectives beyond the purely military, establishing American forces in combat, demonstrating Allied cooperation, and opening the Mediterranean to Allied shipping. The slower pace reflected the need to build American military capability while achieving these broader objectives. Similarly, the Italian campaign served strategic purposes beyond territorial conquest, tying down German forces that might otherwise have reinforced France or the Eastern Front. Moreover, the German focus on operational maneuver caused them to undervalue the strategic effectiveness of Eisenhower's approach. The Mediterranean campaigns had progressively weakened German forces, forced the diversion of resources from other theaters, and provided Allied forces with combat experience. The campaigns had been strategically successful, even if they had not achieved the kind of brilliant operational victories that German military culture admired. Eisenhower was fighting a different kind of war than the Germans recognized, one where strategic attrition and coalition management were more important than operational artistry. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, assigned to inspect and improve German coastal defenses in France, analyzed Eisenhower's appointment from a different perspective. Rommel had fought against British forces in North Africa and had developed respect for their tactical competence, if not their operational imagination. He had studied the Allied campaigns in the Mediterranean and drew conclusions that partially overlapped with, but also diverged from, the prevailing German assessment. Rommel recognized that Eisenhower had consistently achieved his operational objectives in the Mediterranean, even if the methods had been cautious. More importantly, Rommel understood that the material superiority Eisenhower had wielded in those campaigns would be even more overwhelming in the coming invasion of France. The methodical, resource-intensive approach that German generals dismissed as unimaginative would be devastatingly effective when backed by Allied industrial capacity and air superiority. Yet even Rommel underestimated what Eisenhower's appointment represented. The German generals, including Rommel, failed to grasp that managing a coalition, coordinating air, naval, and ground operations across multiple theaters, and wielding the immense logistical apparatus of Allied military power required skills as valuable as tactical brilliance. They did not recognize that Eisenhower's ability to maintain Allied unity while driving toward clear strategic objectives was itself a form of genius different from the operational artistry they admired, but no less effective.